I am telling y'all that if I look like I do in these filters in real life, y'all wouldn't be able to tell me shit. Anyway, back to being pale. Welcome back. We are going to do a few things today. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to wrap up George Wagner in one more video. And then I have a couple other videos I'm going to film, so you'll see the same shirt a couple times this week. I'm going to go ahead and film a few, and then I'll just post them like as the week goes on. And then we're going to start the Casey Anthony documentary because I watched it, and oh, do we have shit to talk about. All right, so final day of court. I mean, it was all one day. Actually, it's two deliberations. But anyway, final part of George Wagner. Defense closing arguments, prosecution rebuttal, jury deliberation, verdict. Sorry, I needed some chapstick. So, John Parker started his closing arguments basically with the same old shit he's been spewing the whole time. That the law enforcement in Pike County can't be trusted, that, you know, George was never a suspect. He didn't have any motive. He wasn't involved. He wasn't like his family. And he said that the prosecutors had their motive all wrong. It was never about custody. It was about, I don't know, Jake and Angela and their bullshit, I suppose, and them imagining shit and accusing the rodents of things that they had nothing to back it up with. And the motive was to, sorry, I accidentally hit stop. The motive was to protect Sophia. He pointed out that Tabby and Jake's ex-wife Beth had been accused of similar things, and George hadn't wanted to kill them. Why would he want to kill the rodents? He went over some other things, like, you know, basically saying that George was never considered until right before they were arrested. He pointed out inconsistencies in testimonies, which is hilarious because he didn't point out any inconsistencies in George's. He pointed out that the timeline of the murder was wrong. Basically, I hate to say it's just, you know, apples and oranges, but it kind of is. He was pointing out who was murdered in what order. Like, bro, it doesn't matter. They were all still murdered in the same fashion by the same people. Like, no. He also pointed out that Jake was laughing, smirking, you know. He said that he was cold-blooded and that John Parker said he thinks he's quote-unquote psychotic. That's about the only true thing that man has said. He also said Angela's not a lot better. I disagree. Angela is a lot worse. He pointed out that Angela only bought 2 pairs of shoes, not 3 for her 2 sons and her husband, and some other inconsistencies with that sort of thing. Go to part 2. Defense closing arguments in the George Wagner the 4th case, part 2. Now, of course, these are irrelevant because at this point, Homeboy's been guilty for almost a week. So, sorry about it. But honestly, didn't expect the jury to take as little time as they did. So, here we are. Anyway, John Parker went on and on about how George couldn't possibly be involved. He wouldn't have fit in the truck. He wouldn't have fit down the hallway at Chris Sr.'s trailer because he was a much bigger man at the time. Something about the interview with BCI, with the Colt pistol. Blah, 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 blah. Like, honestly, none of this fucking matters. Like, we heard all of this when they were going on and on about George's bullshit testimony. John Parker finished his closing argument with telling the jury that they should hold the state to their burden of proof and that they had not proved anything and they should find him not guilty and that, quote, George didn't do this. He wasn't there. And he also hit the podium every time he said that, which would be great and everything if you didn't literally destroy your own argument during your closing argument. So after the defense rested, the prosecution has a chance for a rebuttal. So fortunately, it wasn't Angela, it was Andrew Wilson, which I did have someone comment on one of my videos that he used to work at the prosecutor's office, and he's good. Andrew Wilson is really good. I've liked him this whole trial. I wish that he did more examining than Angela did. During the closing argument, and I don't know exactly where it is, but I'll try to find the clip of it and post it because I'll have to dig through it. Parker said something during it that destroyed the credibility of their case. He claimed that although George wasn't there, if he was, he never intended to kill anybody and he was only there to protect Jake. Wilson said the exact same thing that I said, when I heard that was you can't have it both ways. It's one or the other. He was there or he wasn't. He was there and didn't intend to, or he wasn't there at all. It can't be both. And you cannot argue both. You literally shot yourself in the foot. Like, what are you doing? Andrew Wilson pointed out that the defense putting out two defenses meant that there was no credible defense at all, which honestly, we didn't need them to shoot themselves in the foot to know that. We just had to listen to George's testimony to know that that was bullshit. He also pointed out something that I had kind of picked up on when they were talking about Jake being the shooter at Chris Sr.'s house that night. Didn't they go on and on for like an hour one day about Jake's night vision being shit, and that's why George drove? And there was a tight grouping of shots on the side of the trailer that was from the first week of testimony. Who could make shots like that? An experienced hunter. Who was the hunter? George. Head to part 3. All right, now for no good reason whatsoever, I have mentioned before that obviously I was from this area, and not only was I from this area, I lived at the time very close to Union Hill Road, and I was there when this happened. I lived there, and it was terrifying. So I've mentioned before a little bit about what my story was from that day, and I assure you it's not very interesting, but some people have asked. So here's the 2-minute version. Like I said, I lived in Western Pike County. I did have a Peebles address, though, where I lived. It was not in Adams County, which is where the city of Peebles is located. Actually, I was like 30 miles from Peebles. But Union Hill Road and Peterson Road also have Peebles addresses, even though Peterson Road is very much in Adams County. Union Hill Road is half in Pike County, half in Adams County. It splits the county line. So the day of April 22nd, 2016, at about 9 o'clock in the morning, I woke up from a nap. At the time, I had an 11-month-old. My son that's running around in the background of all these videos, he was 11 months old. He was asleep in his crib, and I woke up from a nap to an alert on my phone on my lock screen from USA Today saying 7 children and 1 adult murdered 90 miles east of Cincinnati. Now, obviously, we live close to Cincinnati. We don't. We live 2.5 hours from Cincinnati. We live in the middle of nowhere. But when it said 90 miles east of Cincinnati, I thought, well, shit, that's here. So naturally, I opened it up, looked at it. It says 7 children, 1 adult. It was flipped from the actual, victim count. And I needed to read, and it basically said that we don't know who, why the shooter is at large. I needed to read no more. Now, I had chili on the stove simmering, went in there, I flipped it off. I grabbed my son's diaper bag. I grabbed my keys. I did not grab my purse. I literally went in my child's room, snatched him out of bed, walked out, called my dad on speakerphone, and then picked up my dog under the other arm. Now, my dad couldn't hear me, but I just wanted him there in case somebody, shot me. I threw my dog. I didn't throw my dog. I threw my dog and my son in the car while my dad was on the phone. And in the midst of this, I had also put my husband's loaded 45 millimeter Glock in the diaper bag and proceeded to lay it in the front seat of the car. I hauled ass to my dad's house. And like I said before, I did get pulled over on US 32 with no license on me. I did have a driver's license. I had no license on me. I had a loaded firearm that I did not have a license to carry. And I was going 90 miles an hour in a 60. I ultimately didn't go home until that night. My husband worked out of town at the time, and when he came home for the night, I did go home, but I stayed at my dad's the rest of the day. So that's it. My story's not super interesting, but that is what happened that day, and that is how it came across.